Just 2 days from now is going to be the 3-year anniversary since my return to YouTube. Actually, my most viral video is one of my earliest uploads. It's quite interesting. So this is the video that got me to 4,000 watch hours. So that is the amount of watch hours that's required during a 12-month span in order for your channel to be qualified for monetization. So yeah, I got almost all of my 4,000 hours from this video. Interestingly enough, this video was uploaded early December. It did not really get picked up by the algorithm. It performed really well. The first 24 hours, it got about 1,000 views, maybe 1,050 views. So then it was slow. Then over the next, I would say 6 to 7 months, it was getting maybe 1,000 views each month. Then something happened. So that video was uploaded onto YouTube December of 2022, and then it was June of 2023. And you guys have to remember, right? So the video was on the Chinese eunuchs. This video got 334,000 views. So I think what happened was because you have to remember 2023, right? That was the peak trans madness, this whole Woklahoma movement to LGBTQ NAI++. So yeah, and it was a Dalen Mulvaney, Bud Light era. A lot of people, they were talking about the trans movement, chemical castration, puberty blockers. And because my video discussed something very similar, so I think someone brought up the term eunuchs and everybody started searching. And I guess that's when my video started to get picked up by the algorithm. So yeah, over the next, I would say maybe next 3 months from June to July to August, it got close to 100,000 views each month. So yeah, it's a very interesting. It's been 3 years since my return, but my most viewed video is one of my earliest uploads. So yeah, I'm not going to get too graphic with this video because I have come back to this topic many times after, because obviously this is my most viewed video. There's a couple that got demonetized due to the graphic nature of the video. So basically, I want you guys to understand something. It's very different in China when they say castration. It's not like the modern puberty blockers, right? So what they're doing also is different. I know the Greeks and Romans, they did something similar, but for the most part, right? Castration means that you have your testicles cut off. That was it, and the penis itself was left in place. But the Chinese castration method is very, very different. So your penis alongside with both of your balls are completely cut off. So how they would do this is, well, I mean, it's excruciatingly painful. So this is, in the ancient times before anesthesia. So what they would do is that, so a guy will walk into the, the surgery room, the emergency room, if that's what you want to call it. By the way, the vast majority of these guys who choose to get this kind of procedure down, they do it voluntarily. Well, they do this because for the longest time period, it's still very much true in modern China and India. Boys has always been preferred over girls. So, throughout history, there has always been a massive surplus of men in pretty much every single civilization, not just in China or India. It was the same thing in Europe for the longest time because, well, you need men to do physical labor, and this is the age before the Industrial Revolution, right, before the rise of technology. And as for the longest time, right, the vast majority of the Chinese population, between 80 to 90%, they were farmers living in rural areas. And yeah, you need to do a lot of physical labor when you're living on these farms, right? So that is why it's just it's not really profitable to raise a girl. So for the longest time, there has always been millions of surplus of excess men. And the vast majority of these men, they don't have an option. Oftentimes they're sold into the imperial palace, right, in order to become a eunuch. And oftentimes some of these guys who become eunuchs, they do it voluntarily because there's a Chinese term. It's called 荣华富贵. So what is 荣华富贵? It means basically you're swimming in riches. You have generational wealth because some of these eunuchs, especially if you've been grinding away inside of the the imperial palace for a while, and if you got yourself allied with a couple of really powerful government officials, with a couple of military generals, if you learn to kiss ass, if you become a pick-me, if you're extremely loyal to the emperor, you will end up getting endless amounts of generational wealth right? Gold, silver, jade, jewelry, anything you can imagine. And the reason why these eunuchs got so much wealth is because, well, nobody's stupid, right? The emperor knows that, all of these eunuchs, right, they have their penis and testicles cut off, so they can't exactly get married or have children, and they cannot build a legacy or, continue their bloodline. So what happens when these eunuchs die, right? So after they die, all of their wealth, all of their treasure, it all goes back to the emperor. So typically, this is how the procedure is done, right? The eunuch, he goes into the surgery room, and there's a professional surgeon, a doctor, right? Whatever you want to call this guy. And it's actually quite simple. Usually he has something like a switchblade. So I'm not going to use any tools, right, for visual reference to avoid, getting flagged or demonetization. So yeah. The patient first he's laying flat on this bed, right? He sits down. Then so the Chinese doctor he asks him to undress, and he gets naked. And he looks at his 3 inches Chinese egg roll, right? So before it is cut off, so typically some kind of numbing agent is used. Sometimes they will soak it in chili water. So yeah, they will get a bucket of really, really cold water with some extremely spicy peppers, possibly some spices. Then what happens is your balls are going to get soaked in there for a couple minutes. After it is soaked and cleaned for a couple of minutes, then it's very simple, right? The surgeon, he grabs your balls like this. He's going to ask you one final question. Are you sure you want to do this? Then once the soon-to-be eunuch Chinese guy tells the surgeon, yes, I am sure I want to do this. Then it takes one quick and swift cut. It's just like a switchblade, like that. Then it is gone. And if you guys are wondering, wow, that's gotta be so much blood if, the penis and both testicles are cut off. So did a lot of people die during these surgical procedures? Well, actually, the Chinese, they were very, very good at this. I guess there's a saying out there, right? Whatever it is that you're doing, there's always going to be Asian that's better than you. So what happens is that immediately after the procedure's done, of course, there's going to be blood gushing out. But what these surgeons will do is that they will apply ashes. Yes, ashes to the physical wound because it is an open wound, right? It's trying to heal itself. So yeah, the ashes method was extremely effective. Typically speaking, on average, right, the mortality rate is only about 2% from these medical procedures. Then the toughest period is usually the next 72 hours. It takes 3 days to, for the initial recovery process to happen. So what happens is for the next 3 days and nights, this newly created Chinese eunuch is not allowed to pee, obviously. He cannot go for number 2. He cannot drink water. I would say between the first 48 to 72 hours. So generally speaking, possibly on the 3rd day, the eunuch will try to actually consume some food. Maybe he will try to drink some water. And typically speaking, after 72 hours, this eunuch, he will try to go pee for the very first time. Well, and if he's successful, then you have a new Chinese eunuch. But if he's unsuccessful while trying to pee, then yeah, that's the 2% of the time he's going to die an extremely excruciating death. And if you're wondering how these Chinese eunuchs, how can they pee if both the penis and the testicle is cut off? They use some kind of a test tube? Well, generally speaking, they have to squat down. So, and they use some kind of it's like a hay. You guys know the hay, the barley thing? Yeah, so, just imagine like a straw or something. Imagine those plastic straws that, you're being forced to use right now. So they will insert it into their hole, because right now it's not really, there's nothing there, right? It's like if anything is a neo vagina down there, so they kind of use it as a catheter, so they have to squat down and just feed their urine through the tube. So that's what they were doing. And if you're wondering what happened to the penis after it's been cut off, right? So yeah, it does not get tossed out, obviously. A lot of you guys might be thinking, does this get sold to the black market or something? No, it is given back to the Chinese eunuchs. So each Chinese eunuch, they will have their name written. And so it's placed in a jar. It's kind of like a, what do you want to call it? A jar of pickles? Yeah, well, not exactly a jar of pickles. That's their treasure. That's what they call it. So yeah, that's the Chinese eunuch's treasure, and it's given back to them. It's kept in a jar, and yeah, both the testicles and the penis, and has their name written on there with a specific number of that eunuch. So so basically, what happens is that this Chinese eunuch is going to keep this jar by his bedside, and he's going to basically sleep right next to it for the rest of his life. And the reason why the Chinese eunuchs they keep their treasure, well, for obvious reasons, is because after these eunuchs die, typically, obviously, after you've had this kind of surgery, I mean, that is going to have extreme adverse effects on your body. For one example is that your voice is going to change. You don't sound like a man anymore. The vast majority of the eunuchs they will develop the gay voice, if that's what you want to call it. Yeah, the gay voice. They'll sound something like this. Yo, hey, what's up, girl? So yeah, that's what happens. I mean, that's expected after, you cut off your balls and testicles, right? So yeah, and also the vast majority of the time, these eunuchs, they don't get to live until a very old age. It's very normal for them to die, at the age of 35, 40, or 50. But I guess it's all the same. You're talking about the medieval times. Way back in the day, the life expectancy was probably only 35 or 40 years old. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't really make a difference when you're living in a medieval time period. So yeah, the reason why their treasure is given back to the Chinese eunuchs so they can sleep alongside with their treasure every single night is that after they die, let's say at the age of 35, 40, 45, 50, right, their treasure is buried alongside with their body. This is due to the belief that, if these Chinese eunuchs, if they lost their treasure, if they were buried, right, without their balls and testicles, they will actually get sent to the lowest circle of hell where they will be punished for all of eternity. And the only way to avoid that kind of eternal punishment in hell is so that, when they're buried, their body has to be full in one piece. So they have to be buried with their treasure. So yeah, a lot of you guys might think this is inhumane. This is so gruesome. But I think a lot of it is, Chinese eunuchs ideology. It's very much related to the 21st century. A lot of people, they talk about, the marriage and divorce crisis. They talk about, the entire dating world is cooked, right? You have someone like, for example, right? So let's say imagine a guy who's a top 1% guy, right? So, in a perfect world, this guy is going to get matched up with the hottest woman in the world. So, in a perfect world, someone like Jeff Bezos will be matched up with Madison Beer, right? But that's just simply not how the world works. So, if you look at Jeff Bezos, well, and his new wife, Lauren Sanchez, well, Jeff Bezos is one of the wealthiest human beings on earth. Lauren Sanchez, who is Lauren Sanchez? She used to work at a 7-Eleven. So you have a woman that's down here, who is matched up with a guy who is up here. So yeah, this is the issue, right? Every single woman, right? When I say woman, when they date and marry, they look to date horizontal or vertically up. I don't even think modern women, they even date or marry horizontal. It's always, vertically up, right? They always want a man who's up here. Well, inevitably, what's going to happen is that, the vast majority of men, they have absolute zero options. They're in the no-go zone, right? Because the men who are, let's say, the zeros, ones, twos, threes, fours, or even men who are mid, they have absolute zero hope, right? Even the ones and twos, they want the 6 and 7s, and the 3s and 4s, they want the 7 and 8s, right? Even women who are mid or slightly above average, 5 and 6s, they all want the 9s and 10s. So, so a very small percentage of men up here is getting matched with all of the women. Well, all of the men who are, the 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s and the mids, they have absolute zero option. Well, that has been true throughout history. So I think the boomer generation, they have no idea how lucky they actually are, because I think that is the closest, but not just in Western society, also in China, that is the closest humanity has ever achieved to being monogamous. When I say monogamous, I don't mean one partner at a time. I mean one partner for life, right? But you think, oh, Chinese history, right? Confucius ideology, Buddhism, Taoism is so holy. They believe in the holy matrimony. One man, one woman for life. Life has never, ever been that kind. Certainly not for men. People talk about the patriarchy, but you're talking about, the top 1 or 2% extremely successful men. The vast majority of men, they got to suffer, like the Chinese eunuchs, right? With the excess man crisis also, right? What happened was, the reason why there was so many of these Chinese eunuchs in the imperial harem, right? In the imperial palace is because, generally speaking, on average, every single Chinese emperor had something like between, 1,000 to possibly 2,000. That's on the lower end. Or on the more extreme end, there has been lots of Chinese emperors that has had something like 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, or even 40,000 concubines. So yes, throughout history, that has always been like that. It's the same thing in any civilization, right? The top 1% man, right, they get to have all the women. And it's the same thing, right? If you're a local government official, if you're like a local mayor, right, in your local village. So the number of women you can have in your harem, it is all 100% correlated to your net worth and to how much power you have. So the more power you have, the more women you have. Yeah, right? If you're the emperor, right? If you're the person that rules over China, you can have 1,000, 5,000, or 10,000 women. If you're like some kind of military general, you might have 5 wives, possibly 7 or 10. If you're like a local mayor or local councilor, you might get 3 or 4 wives. So and the math is pretty simple, right? So excess men aside, right? Think about, if one horny Chinese emperor, he has a harem of 10,000 women. So that means that 9,999 men simply died alone. Yeah, the vast majority of men throughout Chinese history, they met these two fates, right? Either they were drafted into the military and they died as a soldier on the battlefield, or they became a Chinese eunuch and had their penis cut off. And if you guys think this is actually a rare occurrence, it's not. So during the Ming Dynasty, that was the peak eunuch era in China. So yeah, the Ming Dynasty is the second last dynasty of China. Over 1 million Chinese men served as eunuchs in the imperial palace. Yes, 1 million Chinese eunuchs. That's just for one dynasty. Yeah, it's estimated during each dynasty in China, there's been at least at any time period, 20,000 Chinese male eunuchs serving in the imperial palace. So yeah, that has been the reality for the vast majority of men. So this dating and marriage crisis a lot of modern men talk about, well, it's just the evolution. Only the best men get to survive. Only the best men get to procreate and choose these women. The vast majority of men, they're absolutely left with nothing. The only option is chemical castration. And also this is directly correlated to the dramatic rise in LGBTQ. Why are so many men choosing to become trans? Why are so many men becoming gay? Well, it's because the vast majority of men, right, they have no option. Thank you guys so much for clicking on this video and watching it all the way until the end. If you guys have enjoyed the contents of this video, please consider subscribing to this channel, like the video, leave a comment, and turn on the notification button. And also I just want to say thank you guys so much for supporting this channel for the past 3 years now. It doesn't matter if you have been a part of my journey since day one, or if you have joined my channel very recently. Just want to say thank you guys so much for all of your support. I am currently doing everything in my power to make sure that I can produce the best contents to my ability. It's just right now I did say I do still have a full-time job, so it's been extremely difficult. I've been just working between 65 to 70 hours every single week, but I'm doing my best to keep it going, and my plan is to quit my full-time job next spring to focus on building this channel full-time so I can finally take my contents to the next level. But I do need a little bit more time before I can get to that stage. So I just want to say thank you guys so much for all of your support in the past 3 years, and I hope you guys will have a great weekend, and I will see you guys back on this channel for December.